Moon and plants. As the moon gets bigger, the earth exhales. The energy goes from the soil up to the leaves. The juices rise and the growth of leaves and above ground shoots is favored. You should do all the actions with the plants that produce fruit above the ground as the moon grows. As the moon gets smaller, the earth inhales. The energy goes from the leaves down to the soil. The juices go mainly underground to the roots. The period when the moon is waning is a good time for pruning, fertilizing, watering, harvesting and weeding. The moon cycle lasts 29.6 days and is divided into 4 periods, quarters. One, new moon, first quarter, waxing crescent. 2. First quarter, full moon, waxing gibbous. 3. Full moon, last quarter, waning gibbous. 4. Last quarter, new moon, waning crescent. The plants are divided into 4 groups. Group 1. Plants with root harvest. Group 2. Leafy plants. Group 3. Plants with seeds inside the fruit. Group 4. Plants with seeds outside the fruit. Each group has been connected for each period, quarter of the moon cycle. The new moon is a good time to plant plants with outdoor seeds that produce fruit above ground. The cosmic electromagnetic field that causes the moon to exist causes plant juices to rise up and seeds to germinate and grow. The period of ever-increasing lunar brightness that follows also helps. Leafy vegetables and vegetables with external seeds like spinach, cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, etc. push up the vegetable juice. The seeds will germinate faster and gradually, as the moon grows, it will encourage seedling growth. The first quarter favors planting vegetables with indoor seeds. For example, beans, peas, tomatoes, peppers, eggplants. In this phase, the moon is half and continues to grow larger every subsequent lunar day until it reaches the full moon. Leafy plants are most favored in this period. The full moon favors the sowing of vegetables grown for their underground part, root fruits, bulbs, tubers, sarcorizae. For example, carrots, beets, onions, potatoes. After the full moon phase, the moon begins to get smaller and the electromagnetic cosmic energy gradually decreases, while we have more and more moisture near the Earth's surface. As the moon wanes from the full moon phase onwards, the influence of cosmic energy is focused on the roots of the plants. The last quarter, and until the new moon, is a fallow period, ideal for composting and clearing weeds. In this phase, we have reduced electromagnetic energy and reduced night light. It's fallow season. The moon makes one cycle through the constellations in about 28 days. Each constellation from the 12 constellations covers an angle of 30 degrees. If in 28 the moon covers the whole cycle of the constellations, making a 360-degree course in it, then we calculate that the moon stays 2.3 days in one constellation. Here we see which work on the plants will yield the best in each period of time when the moon is in any constellation. Aries, barren and dry, insect control, plowing, pruning, weeding and harvesting. Pruning while the moon is in Aries will help discourage the growth of nuisance plants and weeds. Taurus, productive and fluid, a good time to sow seeds, also a good time to prune plants to control their growth. when the moon is on Taurus, is productive for planting root crops, especially when durability is important. Gemini, barren and dry, insect control, plowing and weeding. Harvest crops during this for long-term storage. Melon seeds fit this position. Cancer, very fertile and moist. It is one of the most fertile times for sowing and transplanting plants. Prune plants to encourage healthy new growth. Good time for fertilizer, irrigation, and water the plants. Leo, very barren and dry. Garden chores that can be done when the moon is in Leo include weed destruction, plowing, pruning, and weeding. Virgo, barren and wet. Prune trees, shrubs, and herbs during this time to help them in shape. Libra, semi-fertile and moist, and a good time to plant flowers, vines, and herbs. Also a good sign to prune the plants in order to control their growth and maintain their shape, planting and sowing special flowers and grain crops. Scorpio, very fertile and moist, one of the most fertile times for sowing and transplanting plants. Best time to plant hardy plants and vines. It is also a good sign to apply fertilizers for the plants. Sagittarius, barren and dry. Insect control, plowing, pruning, and weeding. Good time for harvesting and cultivating the soil. Pruning while the moon is in Sagittarius will help discourage the growth of nuisance plants. Capricorn, productive and dry. Good time for planting potatoes and other root crops and encouraging strong, hardy growth. Good for pruning to promote healing and for applying organic fertilizer. Aquarius, barren and dry. Aquarius is a good for plowing and weeding. Harvesting crops during this moon helps in long-term storage. Pisces, very productive and moist. One of the most fertile times for sowing and transplanting plants. This is another sign that favors crop fertilization, especially good for root development and irrigation. In addition to the position in constellations and the phase of the moon, it is appropriate to examine its position in relation with the planets. You can try to do your farm work on favorable days and times based on nature's vibes. Fish activity on lunar days. On the horizontal axis, we see the lunar days of a lunar month. On the vertical axis, the degree of fish activity with a maximum of 10. As we saw in the tides chapter, the moon along with the sun are created as a result of electromagnetic ether ionization within a spiraling, vertically moving electromagnetic field. The position of the moon as well as the sun are of particular importance in the phenomenon of tides, creating repulsive or attractive electromagnetic forces of specific frequencies on the water masses perpendicular to their position, making the great depths of the seas act either as springs, either as puffs with specific periodicity. Let's not forget that water is a diamagnetic material that accepts electromagnetism and frequencies and is affected by them. Every 24 hours and 52 minutes, we have the moon in the center of the sky. The most intense observation of the phenomenon of the flood occurs at this moment, but also during the antidiametrical, with respect to the magnetic north, passage of the moon, 12 hours and 26 minutes after the passage from the center of the observation sky. The most intense moment of observation of low tide is 6 hours and 13 minutes after and before the passage of the moon from the center of the sky from the observation point. This is how the tidal zones are created, which rotate in relation to magnetic north. The position of the Sun in relation to the Moon in the constellations affect the intensity of the phenomenon, while simultaneously creating the phases of the Moon. In some phases we have a strong phenomenon with standard periodicity, such as in the maximum moon and the new moon. In some others we have a reduction of the phenomenon and confused waters, as in the phase of the first and last quarter and the lunar days close to these phases. These periods are called periods of disorder, where the waters do not have regular flows. All this is a natural consequence of affecting the activity of fish and animals in general. At moonrise and moonset, but also when the moon is in the center of the sky, fish move a lot and look for food at those times. Also, when the waters are down, there is not much kinetic activity, while when the waters are up, there is a big activity. When we have low barometric pressure, the fish are in a more relaxed state, while high pressure makes them more lively and active. Remember that the barometric pressure is the pressure exerted by the ionosphere on the homosphere. Its value changes, as in the ionosphere we have currents of noble gases, which are created as clouds or fumes from the surface of the Earth enter from below upwards, piercing these layers, changing the pressure and temperature conditions there. The phases of the moon greatly affect the activity of fishes, making them to have a behavior dependent on lunar days, as shown in the diagram beside.